Alright, hello guys, welcome back to Be Unapologetically You. And you know what? I sat down to film this episode and I was like, what the fuck am I going to talk about? I have literally drafted about 45 episodes in the pipeline of what to talk about, but then I got to this one today and I was like, I don't want to talk about anything that I've written down. To be honest, there was one thing that I wanted to talk about, and I guess you could relate it to some conversations that I've had recently, but it keeps repeating itself over and over in my head. And this is why I made the podcast. The podcast was to talk about life, to talk about things that people are going through, the business sense of it, you as an entirety of a person. How do you navigate things? How do you navigate life? Because believe me, I really wish that the things that I know now, someone told me when I was 21 years old, when I thought my whole world was ending. And that was just because life got a little bit more difficult. And I'm not saying that I don't validate the parts of my life where I didn't do very well and I didn't feel very well and I didn't feel very much myself, but my God, 32-year-old me could teach this young Emily some big things. So I kind of wanted to talk about control. So this episode might be a bit sporadic and it might be a bit all over the place, but I haven't written any notes on it. I haven't done anything, whereas most people pre-plan their content. This was just, I wanted to film this, so I filmed it. And I moved, or I am about to move, a bunch of episodes that I've already got planned just to fit this one in for the day after that I film it. So if you're listening, hi. I literally filmed this last night and it's now in your earbuds. So yeah, but I wanted to talk about control and the fact that we have a lot more control that we think that we do. Because when things start to go wrong, we usually try and look for a scapegoat or something to explain it or something to blame it on. And there was something that I can't pinpoint exactly who told me, but this hasn't come from me. This hasn't come from my own little brain. I wish it had, because I would rinse and repeat this over and over again and become, I don't know, an icon with one of those, there's those people out there that have one sentence that define them, and I would love to say mine would be based around this. And it was only because I think it was a time in my life where I needed to hear it. And it was control the controllables, and that was it. So there's things in the world that you can control, and there's things in the world that you can't control. And there's no point of worrying about the things that you can't control, because you'll never be able to control them. And that was such a pinnacle thing for me at the time of when I was told it, because I was very much in that self-destructive mode, self-sabotage, doing all that sort of stuff. And the things that were currently paining me at that moment, there was nothing I could do about it. I could work as hard as I wanted to. I could change my entire lifestyle, but it was never going to change the outcome. It was still happening. It was still going to happen. And I'll directly relate it, because I like to bring honesty to this podcast, and I don't want you to think that I'm just plucking bullshit out of my head and sending it over to you. It's not the way that I operate as a human being. But it was around the time my nan and granddad got moved from where I grew up to Wales to be closer to my mum and dad, and then my mum could be on hand a little bit more. And I had not at this point seen my grandparents for, must have been going on about 10 years. And the reason that they went into the care home was because they really just couldn't look after themselves anymore. I'm not going to deep dive into those details. I don't think anyone really needs to know, but basically my granddad wasn't doing very well, and it was the first time in a very, very long time, especially in my adult life, that I was watching someone deteriorate. And that is such an experience at 31 years old. It's so different. So the last person who had passed away in my family that I was generally quite close to was when I was 12. So you're thinking this is nearly 20 years later, and you You deal with things differently. Like, as an adult, the main thing for me was, as a kid, I didn't feel as much regret. But then as an adult, I really did. Like, my granddad, I just felt... I don't know, how do you explain it? I just felt like I could have done more. I could have been more present. I could have gone and driven there more often. I could have, you know, like, all of these things. And I guess, what would you'd call it? Well, you'd call it regret, wouldn't you? That I didn't spend as much time with him. And it was around that time where I was driving home. Well, I was driving to Wales. I was driving to my mum and dad's, like, every month, trying to see him. He would continuously talk about my tattoos, which is what I loved, because when I was younger, I was petrified of getting tattoos because my family aren't too keen on them. I mean, they are fine with it, but they're not like... No one really in my family, or like my immediate family, has tattoos. So I was the kid on the block that got a few. And he'd always talk about them, and he'd always be like, you're like a doodle book, or have you got any more scribbles on you from last time? And it was quite nice, you know, for the last like 6 months of his life. It was fantastic. I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. He was the definition of a grumpy old man. And it was brilliant. And, you know, in that time, every time I was driving home, I would feel all this guilt and pain, and it was at a point where, like, quite a big turning point for business. Things were going really, really well, and I was about to go into prep, and there was a lot of things on my plate that I wasn't dealing with, and it was a friend of mine, and she was just like, you can only control the controllables. And she was like, you can't go back in time. You can't change what you've done. And she was like, and you also shouldn't regret it because you've done what you wanted to do. And I think that was why I was like, well, I feel selfish because I'm meant to be there for family. I'm meant to do this. I'm meant to do that. And she was like, you can't do everything. So she was like, you can only control the controllables. And sometimes when life just gets a little bit shit, as it happens, I remind myself of that. I remind myself to only control the controllables. There's only so much that I can do. You know, I think sometimes we feel so much pressure to be everything, but then feel nothing at all, and that's hard. That's hard for any human being. I can see why it would wear someone down. I definitely know that period of my life I was not very happy. Because it is hard. You're emotionally somewhere else, but you have to keep a professional business face on in that moment. So, you know, like when things were going wrong in the business, when I was fixing things, clients, you know, demanding work to be done by a certain time. And I do say demand because not everyone is sunshine and rainbows in the business, and you know, they're paying for a service, and I could go on to that, but like I have a huge turnaround anyway. I'm pretty quick. I've got a bit of a reputation for it, and yeah, you just can't be everything. So there's some times where I do sit in moments, especially now, whenever I get frustrated or just angry and things, and I'm like, can I control this? No. But can I control my behaviour towards it? Yes. It's hard to do, I'm not gonna lie. It's really hard to do, especially with if anyone experiences like being overwhelmed and stressed, I feel like I pretty consistently live my life on that edge, especially right now. And the crazy thing about it is there are a few things that I can control that I'm choosing not to. And I think that's when my ambitions, my goals and my dreams are taking over, because me 8 years ago dreamed to be in this position where I am, so I'm not going to complain about it. You know, it doesn't mean that it's not hard work, but I'm not going to complain about it. Which was, you know, one of the conversations I've had this week, and that's why I wanted to go around this sort of concept of controlling the controllables, because I put out a post as you do on Instagram. And it was about I made the same amount of money in revenue. I'm going to state that now, revenue. I made the same amount this month, singular month, than I did in the entirety of 2016, which was 8 years ago. When I posted that, it was not trying to be a flex. It was kind of a reflection of what I'd done. And you know, the bloody 24, 25-year-old, very emotionally immature, professionally immature 24-year-old that was just trying something new, you know, that's when I was thinking of the concepts of emerge elite and stuff. And then 8 years later, here we are. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of that. I'm not gonna lie about it. But yeah, you know, like I posted that, and I wasn't expecting the response that I got. I'll be honest, and a lot of them were positive, but there was a few people that were not so negative. And what I found highly amusing on it was never on the comments. It was never on the physical post. It was in my DMs of being like, you're trying to flex, or you think you're all that now, and all this kind of stuff from anonymous people, anonymous faces. And that is one of those situations where you can control the controllables, because I could either let that dumb me down. I could, you know, it's not a very nice thing to say. You get used to it when you put your life on the internet, to be honest, that people just don't agree with what you're doing. I mean, I have people who walk past me and never say anything to my face, but they're happy to slate me online. That's my funniest thing. Like, I find that hilarious. I was like, you've got the balls to say it online, but not to my face. And that's what people are like. But that, again, it's another thing. Can I control that? Can I control what that person does? No. I can limit their interactions with me. I can control my reaction to it, which my reaction is usually just, are you okay? Like, are you like, is everything okay? Are you okay? And I know, to be honest, more times than ever, when I've gone with that response, I get the whole, oh, fuck off then. And I'm just like, I'm genuinely thinking about it, because if you need to make an account with a fake face, I mean, some people do have the balls to do it with their real face, and I commend them for that, at least. And then you just want to go and spread negativity. I just worry about how negative their life may be. I'm just out here trying to live my life. I'm trying to build businesses and take photos and do some cool shit every once in a while, you know. This is what I love to do and I want to do, and I can control that. I can control it. So, especially when times have been ever so slightly harder, I feel like I am out of balance. It is something that I remind myself of what my friend said, which is control the uncontrollable. Control the controllables. Man, that is I'm making that into a tongue twister, and it really doesn't need to be. I mean, it's easier said than done. You know, I can sit here all day and say, you can control your actions. From personal experience, it has made my life easier to manage. Because I don't get offended very often. I try not to get angry. A lot of the time, my anger, I guess now, for someone who used to live in a state of anger, my anger more now comes from things when I can't fix it. Because I'm such a fixer. I like to fix it. I think that's why I like business so much. It's because essentially you're just continuously fixing problems, and I like that. And delivering results. It's the same, pretty much. But you know, like normally that's when I start to get irritated, is when I can't fix things, or I have to rely on other people to help me fix them, because I'm like, why are we not fixing it right now? But you know, that's why, like, as I said, I'm not perfect. I love the quote and the meaning behind it of control the controllables. I keep saying uncontrollables. Control the controllables. You know, I know that I say that a lot. Doesn't mean that I abide by it all the time, because I'm a human with emotions and feelings and a brain that likes to sometimes just be a bit of a wiener. I don't know. I think if you're ever just going to things where you feel like you can't control it, God, this word is going to come up so much in this podcast. Think about what you can control, because there's no point of putting your life on pause because you're trying to fix things that you can't control. It goes to every aspect. You can't control that maybe a family member is not well. You can't control if someone breaks up with you. You can't control if a client leaves you. You can't control someone's bad mood. You can't control those things. That is not your responsibility to do so. But you can control your reactions to it. You can support your family. You can love yourself. You can have a conversation with people. You can step away from the situation. There's things that you can do which are better for you. But I know probably for any people pleaser out there right now, they're going to be like, fuck that. I want to fix it. Because that's what I'm like. But yeah, so this was just more of a ramble of things that have been on my head this week. I always say on my head, not in my head. My English is actually terrible. My dad corrects me all the time because I always use the wrong words and stuff. But hey, you know what? This podcast is called Be Unapologetically You, and that is what I aim to be. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, even though it was more of a ramble than anything else. I do really appreciate you being here. If you liked this episode and you wanted to ask me a question, please let me know on Instagram at Emily E. Topping. And I hope to see you in the next one. Have a good day, week, month, year, etc. I love you.